Mission accomplished. The command that their ship beamed into space with a wealth of human riches, a variety of looted prizes, and natural resources. They thought they'd done it, that they'd just pulled off the perfect heist. Honestly, it wasn't even a challenge. Of course they had heard the stories, and the names of men were not hidden from all the creatures of the stars. The land was the stuff of humble whispers and bars and coteries, and was never advertised as a serious place to visit, or worse, a place to plunder. Yet these aliens, these ignorant animals, heard these stories and found in them not a warning but a challenge. We also have a surprise order. We got a little bold. It would have been fine if they didn't take it too far. Humanity could have brushed off a little injustice and taught them so much, never unreasonable, never evil, but for some things, we took one of them with us, a little human, a little pet. Some things are sacred or squishy. The aliens were tall and brutal things, and this one had particularly large, green skin, and with broad heads. They were the most prolific in space, the raider's joy, the riding bank, the robbery kidnapping, the unusual hope that the sail is not too luxurious. You Squizzly, they were taken by a young woman in the days of a good raid. She was thrown into a small metal room as entertainment on the return flight. Didn't you say the alien squat? He was alone, trying to get something out of her to laugh at. We haven't heard from you since we caught you, so come now and don't be too boring. She raised her head and looked through her dark, messy eyes, deep and unmoving. Here they come. Those were the first words she'd ever said to them. It should have been an exciting moment, some real fun. Finally, this is not the case. Instead, a shock crept up behind the alien, a feeling that grabbed him without warning. It was subtle, short, but undeniably, something deep and crawly erupted from the automatic part of his brain, screaming a warning, but the beast pushed the feeling away. He tried to laugh off these strange thoughts. What the hell does squishy mean? Do you have friends? Are they some stingy friends? She said no more. She just brought her knees to her chest and didn't take her eyes away from the alien, somehow, even behind her cage and trapped in the ship. Her eyes weren't those of prey, but the predator, the alien, stood up, shaking his head. Everyone is right. You people are strange things, strange things disappear. He plays another joke with him, half honest, half deep concern. Yes, the softy who will come, I hope he will fight. He went back to the bridge, where all his countrymen were talking and making noise. That's what a friend called him. So we agreed to come here. Doss slowly walked towards the crowd, still shaking off these hindering thoughts and trying to pretend they weren't real. Doss continued to be happy and pumped into his mind the energy of a successful raid. I think you'll agree that what this team needs is a good old-fashioned juice bar trip. Yes, this is what we all need. My dear, isn't this a nice wine glass? Folks, is FDL capable? Why are the stars so important, and we're out? They wouldn't dare chase us down after the storm, we just instilled them. The room broke out in laughter, they all pushed together and fucked against each other. Doss smiled, but it was crispy shaking every time he flashed. He saw the eyes of the woman, the fire she had under her skin, and the fury churning in her heart, like the raging embers of a furnace. Were all humans like that? Yeah, he nodded, smiling lightly and trying to be energized with everyone. Yes, you're right, so right, I'm right, and yes, there are people rumbling from the corners of the room, even though they're not doing anything. Yes, said another, they're all on board now, all insulting humanity in turn, and we're just accepting more of them. It can even attack. Her eyes appeared again. He jumped as if the memory had bitten him like a snake, and no one noticed, and he continued to laugh with them afterwards, but deep in his belly and chest, his eyes rolled, and a terrible hatred filled the eye. Boldo shouted and pushed it forward with a smile. More loot waiting? We have to empty the tap. Everyone shouts drain. Tap is empty, barrel drains. Faucet is empty, barrel, and everyone except D says it's empty. Clear, swirled, and mixed in a chaotic drink debauchery after the assailant has taken a drink. There are other creatures in the bar. Little things are trying to enjoy a calmer tour, but the raid will not say that this is crying in the faucet, and the crew will cheer on the crew. It was their war song, and they conquered the rally's banner. The robbery mission is to find an intoxicating treasure in crushed glasses and in various battles. My friend, another raider Des, grabbed the DOS and screamed at him. It was attracted. My friend, you really gave him business. You really did it. Everyone was smiling and swaying their eyes without thinking. I didn't, and, oh yes, he tapped his shoulder with one hand. Yes, I did. It's me, the boss, and the diva. The way you threw yourself at her, you absolute heathens, what a thought you had, what a great thought, eyes, they came back and hit her. D stumbled back to reality after the shocking scene. He shook his head and balled his hands into fists. Gud walked towards him and held him still. My friend laughed and asked if maybe he drank too much. No, DS has a head full of unforgettable thoughts. He could no longer contain them. Here they come, me. What are you saying? Suddenly, Doss reached out, grabbed his friend by the shoulders, shook him, and spoke loudly with intense fear. I thought they were people. What can they do? Who are they? I think they will. That's what she said. There was an awkward silence, a strange and chilling confusion. Des slowly removed his friend's hand from his shoulder and spoke carefully. He means it. Now you have to go outside the circle of people. It won't bother us, they're too scared. After what we did to them, their eyes became stars every time they blinked. Now he saw the woman glare deeper into him. Why are nations afraid of humans? There were rumors that he took another sip from his cup. Thoughtful and slow people have told me about them. Some creatures fear that humans are phantoms that they believe are spread across the stars. They haunt you like a ghost. Some people think they are ghosts, that is, ghosts from fairy tales. Yes, he laughed again. Look how stupid it sounded. Both ghosts and creatures believed in such stories. What dare they call us? The stupid people keep their eyes on the ground. On second thought, Des patted him on the back and walked over to the rest of the crew, all of whom were still busy emptying every bottle in front of them and not trusting what they said about humans. All this cannot be true. He left the bar. It was a barren, rocky place, a hut on a small moon overlooking a star of giant orange beetle juice, a steaming foam. He walked over to the middle wall and leaned against it, rubbing his eyes and trying to push away the sunken thoughts he had. He said it to himself over and over, trying to make it unreal, trying not to believe it, but every time he said the word, it had the opposite effect. Ghosts, ghosts, stars. He screamed at himself, kicking the wall. At him, staring angrily at himself, unable to control himself, and when those eyes reappeared, he knew what he had to do. He turned and walked back to the ship. She must tell me that he is now in his mind, talking to himself like a maniac. She has to exorcise a ghost. Lifting the curse from her eyes, he stepped into the ship and turned to face her in the hallway, listening quietly. You must tell me the truth. Now he shook his head and spoke openly, without gestures or laughter, and I could not get rid of these thoughts, and she was gone. Dash stood in front of an empty cell with a fear of electrical anesthesia. He couldn't even blink. Even his thoughts skirted to a halt. Only one thing still moved in and about him. Only one soul gripped his body, causing his blood to flow horribly, but he looked around frantically, hoping that she might slip away. Is she under the table behind the door? No, it can't be, she's not there. She was released, and Doss was absolutely sure it couldn't have been either of them. Their eyes were brighter and more evil than before. He started shaking his head and rubbing his hands together, and the ghost did. It's these spirits. He has to tell everyone in front of him. At the end of the hall, he saw a man shrouded in darkness and wearing a mask standing quietly, no doubt the person staring at him. Only its chin and mouth were uncovered, and they showed a grizzled, hardened jaw. Slowly, with a creeping shyness, it turned into a smile, an arc of marble confidence. Then, as space froze and as the stars seemed to cease fusing together on Earth, it let out a simple hiss. Doss screams and runs away. He waved his hands, tearing up the ground in front of him, and rushed back to the bar. The edges of his vision had turned black. He would only escape when he saw it. He threw in the door, fell into the bar, and screamed loudly. Here, his rasping, desperate cry broke the rangerous party and halted it in a sudden spell of silence. Everyone turned towards their comrade, confused and trying to pull themselves into a momentary, sober mind, stars they /re. Here, Dar yelled, stumbling amongst the tables and eyes looking everywhere they could be in here now, amongst them, in the walls behind the doors we have to run, stars. Deso came up and steadied his friends, calmed down who was here, gripped him tight, and looked right into his eyes. He looked deep and far into his friend the ghosts. Some laughed, others looked around uneasy, one even dared to crack a small joke, but he grasped the desperation in him. Slowly, he ran the thoughts through his head and spoke slowly and nervously as he took DS's hands from him. Well, I looked around, and suddenly they were the only people in the bar. Even the bartender left. Only them. It's just their drunken crew. Okay, everyone pulls out their guns. What's going on? What is going on here? It seems our bastards got up with us humans, dispelled all confusion. He made sure everyone knew their situation. The man's ghost came, but it was too late. Then they were caught in a trap, and before they even knew there was an explosion in the distance, the lights went out, people screamed, and some fired blaster guns, which instantly ignited. The room shows chaos and panic. It was a horror. The rhythmic green flashes from their muzzles showed their own fear, shown in quick shots, and how doomed they all seemed to be. Small shots were heard, and some men screamed in pain. It all happened in an instant, a flashing haunt in an instant. Doss didn't even try to resist. He ran and crawled through the darkness, trying to hide under tables or fallen comrades. It was a nightmare, a terrible and frightening dream, vague and incomprehensible. At another moment, the light was restored, and after a while, he froze in his animal. However, he realized that, at least for the time being, it was spared. His eyes scanned the room and saw only corpses, and when he carefully stood and turned, he saw ghosts. There were 5 of them, all like the first, except that their faces were not even visible. They all wore cloth masks, some with small skulls or ghost paintings. Their weapon belts were loaded with gear, and they looked as confident as only assassins could. Stuttering, desperate, he said, "Come on, I'm not saying we don't have one. We don't understand," but one person turns his head like a bird and looks curiously at the struggling prey, and the others look at each other, and they all seem to enjoy his nonsense. We won't ever come back to Earth again. We will know better. Suddenly, a man walked forward. His movements were so quick that, even though he was walking, he was suddenly ahead of him. Holding Dosa in one hand, he tore off the mask with the other, revealing an old, scarred face. He had short gray hair, a large scar on his left cheek, and a terribly stoic demeanor. "You know who we are." His voice was a blow, a strike from lung ghosts. DS shaking the right thing. Every word flowed from his mouth like blood after a murder. "You know why we're here, because of that woman, because you ___ with the ground." He moved his head closer to you, not ___ with the ground well. "Is that clear?" Yes, that's for sure." Dos wanted to crawl away to disappear forever. Say it out loud. Don't say ___ to the ground again. Blood-soaked wall. Do not drop with the earth. He is shrinking among the other 4 people. I want you to remember, and I want you to tell everyone. Let the universe know. Let them know that if you ___ with humans, you get us, and you get the ghosts. He put his mask back on and squared his stance beside the other 4. They were obelisks, pre-made gravestones for those who dared to try and for those who didn't understand, even in their small bodies. In that vulnerable flesh, they held an aura of immortality, a presence of never-ending, not because they could live forever because they had a godhood, but because inside of their skin, they held mankind's fury. Her endless lusts for revenge are nothing more than vessels, swords, and daggers, sacred weapons used against the only sacred thing in man, humanity. They are the angels and demons of the universe, the ghosts of the universe. Yet when the lights snapped back on and he himself had the confidence to finally open his eyes again, they were gone. It was just him and the bodies of his friends, the blood of his troop, and the corpse of his people's confidence. There is only one thing on his mind, one concept is clear to him right now, and he wants to make sure everyone knows it. He never met the ground,